Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And we got everybody here tonight. And I'll turn it over. Oh, sorry. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local channel Access 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And I will turn the meeting over to our moderator to run our pre-town meeting.
Okay.
Take it away, Scott.
Thank you, Amy. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to, on behalf of the town administrator and the select board, I'd like to welcome you to the pre-town meeting. My name is Scott Carey. I'm the town moderator. And tonight's kind of like a sort of sets the stage for the town meeting. A lot of informational questions could be asked by the audience and people at home. And then we'll do our best to work you through the warrant, especially if some of the people are new to the town meeting process, we get a handle on how it will roll. It'll be 2 weeks from last night. So a couple of things, a little bit of a house cleaning. I just wanted to remind everybody here and people at home that you've gotten your warrant. And if you don't have a warrant or if one did not find its way to you, there are a number of them in upstairs and in the vestibule when you come through. So you want to make sure you get your copy of that. The town meeting this year is starting at 5:30. So that is a couple of things of note. Number one, that's a different time. It's been kind of periodically, we've been outside some years, inside at the high school. So a couple of things of note. Number one, the high school is still a construction project. And number two, I've met with the chief of police and the fire department, and we're all very aware that there will be at that time still a number of students that will be there. Many of the after-school sports programs have not ended yet. Some kids do after school. There are some kids that do night school at the high school. So we're recommending to everybody that is coming to town meeting to get there significantly earlier than you think. So because parking will be an issue, there will be police and fire there to direct people. But it will not be like a Saturday morning when there's nobody there. So just want to kind of give everybody a heads up that, as he said, we want to start on time. We want to get a quorum, but we also don't want to leave 30 people in line. So we're going to try to find that happy medium. But obviously people getting there early will help us. As far as the house cleaning items, everybody kind of has the warrant and basically kind of walk you through the warrant for those who haven't seen it before or are new. It's kind of sets out the agenda for the coming year for the town of Eastham. And basically the warrants are sometimes procedural, they're sometimes budgetary, sometimes they are a citizen's petition. We're going to have one of those this year. So basically it all is comprised upon the business of the town for the coming fiscal year is in the warrant. And so basically I'll kind of walk you through it. If everyone has, or I'm not sure, but you'll kind of see the first couple pages tell you that there are elections coming up. And it tells you the dates on that. Then you kind of get into what's going to be part of the there'll be part of the things that will be on the ballot. There are some questions there. There'll be some elections. And then kind of moving through, we have a report of the select board. And those are the fine people sitting up stage that put that report together. It kind of gives you their assessment of the warrant, the budget, all of the things that make up the business of the town. And that's followed by the report of the finance committee. So you kind of see that, and those are sort of back to back. So there are some things there, and then kind of roll into the articles. And there are, there's the capital budget for the town, and then there's the budget itself. As in past precedent, what we do with the budget is we kind of lay it out in different sections. So if somebody has a question regarding the budget, we can kind of identify where you might have a question, so we can come back to that area in specific. So if Jane Doe has a question about town administration, for instance, and we can identify into that, and then somebody on the either a finance committee or select person could speak specifically to that question if it's not something that I could answer, you know, as the moderator. There is, and I want to take you to the back for a second, because this comes up every year. If you look in the back of your warrant under Appendix A, which is, if you have your warrant, it's page 57. And I just want everyone to see this. So these are sort of the town's procedure for town meeting. These have been comprised over time. Some of it's from the charter, some of it's just been precedent over the town. But you will see, and I bring you to number 5, which is we're going to use electronic, electronic voting calculators. So if you haven't used those, we do that. But there's also a question that comes up every year about non-resident taxpayers to being able to speak. And so what we're going to do this year is we're going to divide that into 2 sections. And the first section is going to be all of the articles that are before the petitioned article will be a vote, which is required in order to let non-resident taxpayers participate in any debate on those articles. So we're going to take that as one group and we'll vote on that. And then as the moderator, because there is a petitioned article, which you'll find, we'll get back to it, I'm going to take that as a separate item and take it out of the conversation with the audience for that to be we're not going to have a vote on whether non-citizens can speak to that article. The reason for that is that that article is being a petitioned article by a non-resident taxpayer. In order for that to be debated at town meeting, we're going to need a motion and a second from a registered voter. We've spoken to the petitioned, the person who's leading the petition. They have assured me that they have a person who's going to make the motion and they have a person who's going to make the second that are registered voters. So we're going to take that out from the normal way that we would handle it, because I don't think it's fair if it got voted down to not let the people speak to that article. So that is the way that we're going to do it this year. So I just wanted to get all that out in front of everybody, and just that's how it's going to play out on town meeting night. So anyways, just wanted to kind of get that out in the open in case anybody had any questions on that. And then we can kind of go back through and see if all these great people have questions on any of the specific articles. You want to just walk through every one of them? Okay. Okay. So picking up, we'll just look at Article 3 is capital budget. Well, good. Yeah. Okay.
Those are kind of big ones.
The operating budget.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, yes. So we do have operating. Why don't we start with Article 2, and then we'll go back to, or we'll go Article 1 is the authorization and spending limits for revolving account. That is kind of discussed on page 12. For pretty standard fare, it's a kind of procedural in nature. If anybody has any questions on why that's there, how that got there, we can kind of address that. Seeing none, nobody on the screen, somebody watching on the screen in case somebody comes up. Okay, good.
Yep.
Article number 2 is the operating budget. And because as I was saying before, it's kind of broken out every year. It's done just still slightly different, but it's been comprised now to 7 or 8 sections that are like sections. So gives everybody kind of an idea to be able to look at things and catch your attention on various things that you might want to discuss with your fellow taxpayers and voters and or the select board. That's 2, and then 2B is the article Water Enterprise Fund operating budget. Anybody has any questions about the need for that or? Okay, not seeing any, all right. Article 3 is capital improvement plan and capital budget.
No, we did that. 2B.
And then 3B is the capital budget itself. And this is always a good time because this is my favorite article when it comes to town meeting. I always like to ask Rich, where's the free cash come from?
Our capital budget's largely funded by free cash, which represents savings from our operating budget from the prior fiscal year. So for example, in Article 2A, we are asking on the operating budget to be appropriated $45,698,000. If we only spend 40 million, just for sake of argument, that extra 5,698,000 goes back to the town and can be reappropriated by a town meeting. We utilize that as that's called free cash to fund our capital plan. So for that purpose, we do budget our appropriations in the operating budget conservatively so that we can generate free cash to fund the capital plan. Also, our budget is funded by various revenue sources and they has to balance. So that 45,698,000 of spending is offset by 45,698,000 of revenues. And sometimes we also estimate our revenues conservatively. So we do expect a return. So again, if we budget 45,698,000 of revenue, but we actually collect 47 million, that extra money, again, goes back to the town's general fund and can only be spent by town meeting approving to spend that money. So savings on our budget and savings and earning more revenue than what was used to balance the budget generates our free cash and goes to our capital plan, and it has saved us a lot of time, bureaucratic effort, and money by foregoing borrowing. Many towns borrow funds to pay for their capital budget and their capital plan. By annually appropriating money in our various town facility repair and maintenance programs and equipment replacement programs, those are funded annually every year, and our department heads can use that money to steward it, to make wise purchasing decisions and accumulate funds as needed so that we don't have to borrow.
Great. Thank you very much, Rich. And I always like to anticipate questions that people might have in the audience. So this is a question. Under 3B, is that under the capital budget, is that 2.4 million, is that in the budget itself or is that this on top of it?
It's separate. The 2A amount is the operating budget, and we kind of break this down into budgets. The overall budget's kind of broken down into 3 segments. 2A being the operating budget, which is annually recurring expenses that our departments need to fund their departments on a year-to-year basis. Those are funded by annually recurring revenues. We don't want to fund them with one-time revenues that aren't there in the next year, which causes the tax rate to spike up. The second bucket is our capital budget, which is 3B, and those represent not annually recurring items. Those are things like significant repairs on buildings, like a roof or windows, or HVAC systems, which are a big issue for us in the last couple of years. Replacement of a fire truck or an ambulance is a part of our capital budget. Those don't occur every year, and those can be funded by non-recurring revenue sources since they don't occur every year, like free cash. And then finally, the third element of our budget buckets is Article 4, which the moderator will get to, and that's other budget items, largely funding of our various reserve funds.
Thank you, Rich.
So the free
Represent the free cash from.
We're gonna need people to come up to microphones,
What-
otherwise
Because the
the
people
we
on,
won't catch it.
we're so sorry.
Yeah.
Bill?
Sorry,
There's one right here.
that's right here, right
Yeah.
at the desk, right up front here.
Walking around my group.
Yeah.
Make sure the green light is
Yep,
is
there's
on.
green light on. So Rich, the free cash that's represented in the budget here is free cash surplus, lack of a better word, from the previous year. Those are real dollars. That's not dollars initial dollars that need to be appropriated, correct?
Right, it's surplus from in this case, the FY '24, which ended June 30th, '24, and it goes through a process of auditing through the Department of Revenue, and they actually certify an amount.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, sir. So that will kind of,
We also have a question online.
okay.
Tom Gardner, I'll promote you to talk.
There it is. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
Good
Tom.
evening. Tom Gardner, 10 Gull Lane. I had a question on Article 3B, Capital Budget, Line 1A, Townwide HVAC repairs, $550,000. Could someone talk a bit about that?
Yes, that's the single biggest item in Article 3B, and it's probably the biggest item we've seen in several years in our capital plan. All of our, Tom, being on the Finance Committee in the past, you've probably, heard this discussion about, there's been a lot of deferred maintenance on our facilities going back 20, 25 plus years. One of those elements is lack of maintenance on HVAC systems. And so we have a significant need in our fire department, which is actually being resolved this fiscal year currently. We also have a significant need at the police department. And if we get those two facilities sorted, we have a significant need at Town Hall to replace this HVAC system as well. HVAC systems are very expensive. And so this 550,000 will cover one or two of those buildings. And we expect to offset that or supplement that by a Green Communities grant, which we are optimistic that we'll be able to apply for and receive in the fall, which will help mitigate some of the costs to the town.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Seeing no other questions, we'll kind of talk about Article 4A, which is other budget appropriations. Seeing no. Yep. Yeah, jump up to the mic and introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from and see what we can do.
Jim Moore, 6 Fallon Road. A question for you on the 4A relating to the rental receipts. When that was put into place, was the funds coming from the rental receipts designated? Rental receipts.
Short-term rental is what you're asking?
On the rental receipts received from the preceding year. So in other words, when we put that in place, right? town put
The
in place-
short-term rental tax,
Yes,
is that,
yeah.
yes.
So was that free cash or was that designated how that was going to be utilized?
It does become free cash. So our plan, and I unfortunately have to give you a little bit of history, and this does relate to other topics that will be coming up later on after town meeting. Every town in Cape Cod is facing wastewater implementation issues. And in the good old days, so to speak, you could rely on, varying percentages, but say, 50% could come from the federal government, 25% from the state, and 25% would be a local way to get the 100% of what you need to fund a wastewater project. The federal government's kind of out of the picture now. The state doesn't really have extra 25% laying around. So what they did for the Cape and Islands, which were facing significant issues for wastewater, they created an Airbnb short-term rental tax, as you're referring to. And in Eastham, that's 6% of any rental. So in last year, that amount was over $1.5 million collected. We intentionally have not included those receipts to fund our operating budget because the intent of the legislature when that bill passed was they considered that to represent the state's 25% share of funding wastewater. It was specifically mentioned, the whole purpose of initiating that bill was to fund this wastewater program. In addition, they also created an extra 2.75% tax that went to the Cape and Islands Wastewater Protection Fund. So we've kind of stewarded those receipts to honor that intention, knowing that wastewater is going to be an issue for us. And so to the extent we have short-term rental receipts, it does become free cash because it's money that wasn't budgeted that's in excess, as I described earlier. But we wanted to honor that intent and not just have it go back to the general fund for anything. So to the extent that's been unbudgeted, those monies every year for the last 3 years go to a wastewater stabilization fund to help us phase in a implementation of wastewater when we make a decision to do that.
How much money is in that fund right now?
Give me just 1 second.
While he's looking for that, I can tell you that, so this law passed in 2018 and the select board made a policy decision in 2019, which they have committed themselves to make that short-term rental funds not a part of the operating budget, but to save it for wastewater.
Right now, it's a little over 2.1 million in the fund. This contribution would make it about 3.5 million. And we don't have any formal goal, but as I've talked to others about it, my preference would be to have about double that on hand if we could get it. One of the things about implementing wastewater is you need to build a plant, and that plant needs to operate before 1 gallon flows into that plant. And then when that does start flowing, it doesn't just all hit all at once. It comes in over time as people connect and systems develop. So you need a lot of cash flow on a startup of a wastewater plant.
Thank you, Rich. Seeing no other questions or concerns on 4A, we'll go to 4B, which is the prudent investment rule.
I made a joke at this one when we talked to the COA board, because the COA talk I had pre-town meeting, because like, is anyone seriously going to vote against prudent investment? Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
But we have to ask.
No, fine, yeah. All right. Seeing nobody that has any concerns or questions about a prudent investment rule, we'll move ourselves right to 4C, which is adopt a wastewater enterprise fund.
Mr. Moderator, I just want to give the background on this. We have a kind of moving target with our wastewater planning, which I'm sure we'll talk about by the end of this meeting. But the cornerstone of that is receiving funding from the state revolving loan fund. And so in order to receive funding from the state revolving loan fund, you have to adopt an enterprise fund for this utility, same way we did for our water utility. It's operated in what's called an enterprise fund, which ensures that all the receipts associated with that activity are segregated for paying the costs of that activity. And it's to keep those revenues and those costs separate from the general fund.
Thank you, Rich. Seeing no one else with running up to the microphone. Be like school, I'll start to have to call on people. So we'll move ourselves right to Article 4D, acquisition of 2845 and 2825 State Highway for housing, wastewater, pump station, and stormwater remediation.
Scott, we have a question.
Question right there.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Gorska-Thurliman, and I have a seasonal home at 6B Sandy Hill Lane. And I've been doing water sampling at Salt Pond for the town of Eastham and Massachusetts Estuary Project for a number of summers. So I'm very interested in this article, a solution to mitigate the stormwater that's running off of Route 6 into Salt Pond. And I hope to see it coming through in the near future. So in the article here, you say Article 4D requests authority to raise and appropriate, transfer from available fund and or borrow the sum of $850,000 for the purpose of said acquisition. Now, is the $850,000 in the proposed fiscal year 26 budget? And if so, where specifically?
So if you recall, just a few moments ago, Article 2A is annually recurring thing, so it's not in 2A. 3 is our capital budget, which is for our normal replacement of equipment and facilities and maintenance and repairs. And 4 is other budget items. So this is considered part of our overall budget. It doesn't get contemplated or figured in any of the other articles. This particular article is, the motion is likely to be that it's a borrowing, to borrow the funds, to issue a bond, to pay, to buy this property for, as is explained in the summary, for the various purposes and needs.
But doesn't debt go into the budget?
It does, but in this case, the bond wouldn't be issued until during fiscal year 26. And so the debt service won't start until fiscal year 27.
Okay. But it's kind of guaranteed. Because in the budget, you had, fiscal year 27, 28, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to I wasn't sure how fast you can move
That's
forward
the
with it.
capital, 5-year capital plan that
Mhm.
goes the future years.
Sorry, I don't know much about this.
That's okay.
That's all right.
That's the Article 2 or 3B
But
or 3A is the 5-year.
Carolyn, I think your point is well taken. So we've been working on this since 2018, when we got a USDA grant to do some stormwater remediation around Salt Pond, and we could not figure out how to get, there's not a lot of town-owned land around, so it's, the federal government owns some, we own some part of the landing, and then the state road layout takes up a lot of that space. And so there was no way to move forward with that project. So it became very frustrating to us. We've tried twice since. So this will be the way that we can get the space across the street to be able to do the stormwater remediation, because there is a drain that goes under Route 6 right into the pond. So, yeah.
And Carolyn,
Thank you.
there's one other thing, the election.
Oh,
First
yes.
question on the election, which will be the 20th of May, will allow us to exempt the loans for purchasing 2825 and 2845 town state highway. So this is for those. So it actually will be, it's on the ballot as well that we have to do to exempt that loan. So the plan is to get a loan for it if it's approved at town meeting, and if this is approved in the election on the 20th. So the funding will be there.
Great, thank you.
Jackie, while we look at Article 4B, which also is talking about the same general parcel of land, you want to give everybody a 30-second of the 4 parcels, what the town currently owns, what the plan is? Because I can't imagine that everyone is.
Yeah, it's a
Complete-
long story, but I'll try and, not make it longer. So in 2018, 2019, these are 2 duplex buildings, right? And there's apartments on either side that are condos. And they're both 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath. So there's, they're huge, pretty large size. In 2019, we took 2 of them for non-payment of taxes. So the owner did not pay the real estate taxes. So we went through the court process and took 2 of them. So we've kind of been struggling because we've had 2 and he owns the other 2 and won't do any repairs on the other 2, and we can't do repairs on our side because they're connected. So that's been a problem. And we need the stormwater, and this is the perfect location for a pump station for the wastewater treatment plant, because that's a low gravity spot. So it has to be pumped up. So we decided that this year was the year. We were just going to take the whole parcel for those purposes. And so we will take the 2 homes. state law requires that we pay the value of the two homes. So that's where the $850,000 comes in.
That was my question. That's why there's money allocated in the article because of the state law. And most people that know that area, it's two condominium associations. So there's land that goes with the units that the town already owns the two. So now they're going to get the two. And so you'll have all four and control all of the two condominium associations. So I sort of jumped ahead, but I thought it was good information for the town administrator to share with
And
us.
as you're driving down, if you look to the left and you'll see the condo units, to the left of those, you'll see a depression. And that's where there's some storm water that goes, it just literally runs underneath the road right into Salt Pond.
Just to,
Sorry.
sorry, I want to build on what the lady talked about. You're appropriating 850 for the land. But where does the pump station come into line?
Oh, okay. So anything else we do with this parcel, whether we, do a pump station, that would be included in the wastewater project. So that would be paid for as a part of the wastewater project. Stormwater, we've had some US grant success getting USDA grants, and that may also be included depending on what the mitigation is to Salt Pond. That may be that piece of the stormwater may be included in the wastewater treatment costs as well. So those two pieces are that. And then the housing, I think we haven't discussed it specifically, but I think what we'll probably try and do is turn the rest of the land over to a developer to try and do some mix of housing. Because it's
I
a
get-
beautiful spot. It
Yeah,
really is.
I guess my comment, it seemed like there would be a good sense of urgency
Yes,
to address the runoff,
yes.
right? And so are you saying we don't have the money to work on that this year? To physically work on that?
Actually, we have had the money to do the engineering, and the engineering for the stormwater has been in process now for almost 3 years. So we are ready to move forward with the stormwater segment.
But the
Once we
challenge,
own the land.
but the challenge has been that
Right.
it was almost near impossible to get the permitting on federal, state, local,
Sure.
and not a lot of space on the east side of Route 6. This gives us the space to do that.
But they have actually perk tested and done the testing on that side of the road, so we know we could put
So
it
when do
there.
you think that drainage will be mitigated? The runoff will be mitigated? When do you think?
12 to 18 months?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fallon, or Mr. Moore, sorry
wait.
about that.
Can I ask
Yes.
you,
Um,
Scott? I was-
Yeah, question.
Another question?
Are there any other like non-payment tax related issues with the
The other two?
the other two properties?
Not that I know of right now. We'll certainly check that before.
Okay,
Since they're due, what, 4
Thank-
days before town
Yeah,
meeting?
they're due 4 days before town meeting.
great. So Article 4E is the transfer. Oh,
Hi, Dave Hobbs, 190 East Barrel Hawk Lane. Just out of curiosity, who decides that the value is 850,000? Is that just by our assessing department or?
No, the law requires us to have a neutral third-party assessment of the land, which we did. And that's why we already have a value on both of the units.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Dave. Seeing nobody else on 4D, again, Article 4E is the transfer of 2835 and 2815 State Highway.
So
Yeah, Jackie shot at this one too.
basically, once they're legally taken, then this vote would transfer them into the custody of the select board, and then the select board will make decisions based on that, on what to do with the land, like to, do an RFP for a developer or how to move forward with the stormwater and the wastewater. They can't, I should say, under state law, they can't make a decision that departs from the reasons that we gave you in the warrant. So whatever the motion says we're going to use the property for, they have to use that the property for that. They can't just decide, oh, it would make a great mini golf center.
I think it, question right there.
There's a question?
Jeff,
There's a
please
question.
come to the mic, sir.
Just have a stand up.
Steve Kearns, 1195 Bridge Road. Maybe I missed something, but we got the $850,000 to buy the property. Property, we want to use it for mitigation. You said about 18 months, we would get that all taken care of.
That's just
What's
for
that going to
stormwater.
cost and where's that coming from? Like I said, maybe I missed that.
So all along, and I think it was 2023, we've set aside some funds for stormwater remediation. So I think it was 2023, we got $1.7 million from the USDA. So those loans are still, those grants are still out there and available to us. But we have to complete the engineering portion first. So that's what we've been struggling with, is how to complete the engineering when we do not own that parcel of land. So we've gone as far as we can go without owning it. Now we have to take it. And once we take it, then we can proceed.
And what do you think it's going to cost to do the water remediation?
The last cost we got was several years ago, but it was roughly $750,000.
750.
Yeah.
And we have that covered with various grants.
We hope so. I mean, I think we're going to move forward with it. And if we have to ask for more, the USDA usually, I mean, one doesn't know now what's happening. But usually what they will do is they will increase the amount if we need more. We just have to send the engineering up the USDA. And the reason we get it is because it's out of their rural development division. They consider us rural.
In worst case scenario, we do have in our capital plan for next year, $4.5 million. We're hoping it's not that much, but we'll know that next year, of townwide landing, stormwater reconstruction. So this would fall in that if needed.
Thank you. Great question. So
As well. I'm going to promote Thomas Lamountain to talk.
Yes, Thomas Lamountain, 60 Chokeberry Drive. I appreciate the idea of actually acquiring that land for the wastewater plan eventually. But what happens to those two properties once the town owns them and undertakes this project?
So right now there are, out of the 4 units, there are tenants in 3 of them. So we have to, consider that piece. We've been sort of limping along doing some, not renovations, but some maintenance for those tenants and collecting rents for the 2 that we own. So we'll have to make a decision on what we do. But again, having not really discussed it thoroughly with the board, I think our suggestion would be to do a request for proposals for a developer that would like to create some housing there and do it that way.
So the property that's there would probably be demolished and replaced with new buildings and so forth?
Yes.
So 1.6 million, if you figure the other 2 places are worth it, is a sunk cost to the town?
I mean, I can't answer that question this evening because we haven't gotten into it.
We didn't pay for the other 2.
Yeah, we
They
did
were
pay
tax-
for
they were
the other
tax
2.
taking.
Right.
Yeah, but they're still worth that. I mean, if the other
Yes.
2 are worth 850, then these 2 are too, probably.
Yes.
So 1.7 million dollars we're talking about here.
But part of the reason that they're worth money is because that is a beautiful parcel of land with views of Salt Pond. So it's certainly not because of the 1970s buildings that have not been maintained well, like both, I don't know, it would be up to a developer and we could certainly see if there would be a developer who would rather renovate than and salvage what they can. But that's really, we haven't done an assessment of that yet. So I can't really answer the question this evening.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, sir. Seeing no other questions, we'll take a look at Article 5, Town Bylaws and General Items, and 5A is a Seasonal Community Designation Acceptance.
Come on up. Get your exercise today.
Jim Moore, I think that there's a lot of frustration with too much government in our lives. And I read this article about the seasonality, and it talks about that if we don't adopt it, there could be some repercussions from the state. So it always says, that's what it says in the article. So, the state's going to make us play hopscotch, right? So what does that mean to our people here? What does it mean that if we said, hey, we're not going to do this, what's the recourse?
So that's,
Do that.
Right.
Take that one or.
yeah, I can start it. So right now, that's what we have to do is play hopscotch. We have to go use home rule petition to get things done. That takes years, even if it's passed at town meeting or several town meetings.
We even have some on this warrant.
Yeah, we even have some on this warrant. So this act really combined a lot of things that towns on the Outer Cape especially have been asking for years. So it's going to bypass that home rule ask. And there are a bunch of things laid out that are really givens to us and priorities for grants and, year-round housing trust to be able to establish these things. All that would take home rule petition. And preference for municipal workers isn't even allowed under fair housing. So if we adopt this, then we can designate specific housing for municipal workers. Right now, we can't do that legally.
And this piece of legislation came from Cape Cod. It was our piece of legislation. We petitioned the legislature to consider it. Julian Sear and Sarah Peak,
Advocating.
basically got it done. And so it really is ours. And I think that it's something that, again, we've worked for years. So when I hear people say, well, we're not ready to accept it, I mean, the legislation's already passed, and it just seems like a real missed opportunity if we've worked so hard to do it and then we say no to it.
When we talk about residents, is that Eastham residents? Is it residents of individuals that work in Eastham? I mean, is that the definition of a resident? Because
Hold on,
I'll
are
tell
you
you,
talking about what she was referring to about like residents supporting this? Because we're talking to talk about Cape wide.
this relating to this warrant.
Yep.
So when we talk about residents, are we talking about residents who live in Eastham? Are we talking about residents who work in Eastham?
We're talking specifically about the ability to acquire year-round housing occupancy restrictions. So basically to purchase or deed restrict some homes for year-round occupancy. The ability to perhaps give some preference for some developments for workers for the town of Eastham.
I think that's the.
The
that's
year-round
question.
housing trust fund allows us to raise the limits of the income restrictions that right now really prohibit us right now because, it's 80% of AMI and below gets access to housing. And we know that two working people are going to make more than 80% of AMI. And so we want to have some available rental housing for two working people. That will allow that's something we've been fighting for years.
Yeah, we've been-
It allows us to use the undersized lots that we might have for housing. And, I think it just gives us some new things that we've been asking for, some new ways to.
I think it's
tackle the project.
good. I guess my question would be, let's take a town. 25 people from Mashpee want to come move from Mashpee to Eastham and use our residencies. Is that allowed or is that something that's going to be not prioritized?
Well, if someone from Mashpee wants to come and buy a house in Eastham and deed restrict for year round, then we're going to welcome them because they're going to be new residents, right? So what we're looking for is
Year-round
more
housing.
year-round housing, period.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, is
This isn't subsidized housing necessarily.
it gets a unit designated as a year-round unit, so it takes it off the short-term rental market, whether they've come from Mashpee or they're existing Eastham resident.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Also helps us with hiring.
Thank you very much for your questions. Seeing no more,
Speaking of home rule petition.
move along to 6A, which is a real estate transfer fee.
This is one of those home rule petitions we were just talking about.
This is requesting, yes,
Yeah.
special
And
legislation.
it was supposed to be in that, the new housing
Bond.
bond bill, but at the last minute, they dropped it. And so when Julian Sear was, and Hadley Luddy, our new rep, were here in January, they're asking all the towns in their districts to put it back on the warrant to show the state that people are interested in doing this, and maybe they'll come down with something else from the state. It'll probably take a couple of years, my guess, and it won't necessarily look like what is written here, but this is just sort of an ask that they come up with something. Sort of like when we did the short-term rental tax, we tried, I don't know, at least 3 town meetings, if not 4,
Mhm.
to get that passed by the legislature. They finally came up with their own version of it and then made it statewide. So that's probably what they'll do with this. They won't give it to each individual town. They'll make a broad sweep for the state.
Maybe with some flexibility built into
Right.
it.
And then
So-
in
Just to kind of clarify, because I just want to make sure everyone's, are you saying that this is not officially a law if it's passed at
No,
town meeting?
that's right.
It is a home rule petition that we're asking the state to.
Right.
So you're voting to allow the select board to send this to the legislature for a special home rule petition to allow Eastham to adopt this.
We're saying we want this.
Other towns have done it and they've said no, right? So alls we're doing is sending a message that that we are in support of this if they get themselves together and they want to create a piece of legislation that's statewide.
And useful.
Yeah, and the numbers we have in here are the numbers that this was in the
State.
legislation that was dropped right before it was passed. So we mirror what was in the proposal before the state legislature this past year.
But the process is it goes to the state legislature, it goes through the Senate and the House. Their attorneys look at it, they recommend it through committees, and then they vote on it, whether to allow it or not. And usually that takes approximately a year and a half. Our charter took a lot longer than that. It was almost 3 years. But that's how long it takes. And then if they accept it, it then comes back to us to go before town meeting again.
Okay, that was my follow-up question. So this will be coming back in front of you as.
Perhaps.
If the
if
state-
this, if the
it's-
state
legislature
in some way
doesn't.
approved it, yeah.
I'm definitely going to call on you back there. You have a great smile and you're ready to go. I can sense it.
Waiting patient.
7 zoning bylaws. So this is 7A. And I know Paul Wag, our town planner, is here. So maybe anybody has any specific questions, I could ask Paul to come up and kind of give some ideas, or if you want to give a little. Yeah, I think it'd be great. Why don't you come on up here, Paul?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, right here.
The trap door right underneath you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So Article 7 deals with zoning amendments to the Eastham Corridor Special District. That's the main commercial zoning in North Eastham. The current zoning was established in 2017. It served us well. A lot of you will remember that we established that zoning in response to some commercial development that the town felt, the community felt was unfavorable. Some chain stores and things like that. So we put that zoning in place to make sure that we had the proper protections so that Eastham's community character would be retained, and we had tools to shape projects, make sure that North Eastham reflects our long-range planning. So as I said, that zoning served us well, but it does have some shortcomings. There's a lack of clarity in a lot of the bylaw, but more importantly, over the last, between 2017 and now, the town has done a lot of planning. Strategic plan, updated housing plan, wastewater planning. We purchased the Tea Time property, the Town Center Plaza property, the properties we were just talking about for housing. The zoning doesn't reflect what the vision is for those properties and the town in general, what we want to achieve in the future for commercial and residential. So that's really the main piece why we want to move forward and put these zoning changes in place to make sure that we're prepared. The zoning is the framework upon which the Tea Time property and a lot of these other property development is going to happen. So we want to make sure the zoning's in place to reflect what the community wants to see there. So that's really the main crux of what we're trying to do. The components of that is really to incorporate what's called form-based code, to get rid of some of the ambiguity that's in the current bylaw. So form-based code is basically focuses on the built environment. Traditional zoning, we're concerned with the land uses, industrial here, commercial there, restaurant here, so forth. We still retain some of that, but the bylaw is really set up to focus on what is the building going to look like? How is the site going to be developed? How is it going to fit in the context of the surrounding areas? What's the impact going to be on the traffic? And so that's really what the elements are, is a form-based code. And so it does put in requirements for, again, how things are going to look and feel, the shape of things. So building dimensions, architectural standards, standards for the use of certain types of materials, signage, landscaping, buffering, so forth. It's important to remember this whole area is also in our Zone 2 Water Protection District. So there's language built in there to make sure that we're have sustainability and environmental impact items built into the zoning. There's also a focus on the transportation network, Route 6. We want to make sure the zoning reflects that, and this is not so much zoning, but it's part of the zoning, is to reflect that in the future, as properties get redeveloped, we can consolidate curb cuts, have opportunities for shared circulation, shared parking, so all the commercial businesses are not building the same parking lot in a road. We want to share these services. We want to be able to set up for public-private partnerships when they arise, and make sure that the street network, Brackett Road, is available, that we can have possibly a connection between Brackett Road and Tea Time, working with the private properties in between. And also looking at Holmes Road. Holmes Road, the industrial area, is part of this district as well, and making sure that we can accommodate trade space, expansion in the future, and possibly build out a road network through Holmes Road to Route 6, again, to take pressure off Route 6. So as these areas get developed and infilled, it doesn't overwhelm our whole transportation system and make Route 6 untenable. So there's a lot of components built into it, but as I said, the main crux is to make sure the zoning is the framework that we want to make sure we can reflect what the vision is for the town-owned properties, but also make sure that we can maximize for the private properties, the commercial businesses, that they can maximize the use of their property. And this goes hand in hand with wastewater. So if they want to expand their business, restaurants want to add some more capacity, they can do that, but they can also add housing for their work for year-round rentals. The zoning incentivizes year-round rentals and affordable housing and workforce housing. So all these things fit together into, again, the vision for what we're trying to see for the long term, and reflect all the planning that we've been going on over the past 10 years, really. So hopefully I summarized that, and happy to answer any questions.
That was great. Why don't you stay right there, because I'm going to bring you back up in a second. And just for the good of the order, for on-town meeting, will Paul be delivering, or do you mention maybe Mary Nee?
I don't think we've
Doesn't
talked
matter
about
to
it
me,
yet.
but yeah.
So Mary Nee is the chairman of the zoning task force, and they've been working on these zoning articles now for, I want to say 4 years now, but this one in particular for 2.
Great. And if anybody watching at home or has a chance to read this over, Paul, what would your email address be that people could email you any questions?
Yep. So all the material is online on the Town of Eastham, the planning board webpage. There's a link, 2025 proposed zoning amendments. So all the material is there. There's a summary report that the task force put together, which does a great job at going over this whole thing. My email address is plagg@eastham-ma.gov. And again, feel free to contact me. Happy to answer questions. Folks want to come into town hall, talk with me face to face, that's fine too. I'm available.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate that. So that was 7A. And along with the work that zoning task force did and Paul's sort of overseeing is Article 7B, which is changes to our accessory dwelling unit ADU bylaw. So Paul, you want to jump up back up here?
So this goes along with the changes at the state level that the state has made to the housing, and it is related to the community, seasonal communities also. The state has made changes to the accessory dwelling, the ADU bylaws, and they're trying, and the crux of that is to really make it easier to create ADUs, to diversify the housing stock, as you probably all know. And this is really Cape-wide. The majority of housing is single-family homes, and it doesn't present a lot of opportunities for folks who want to downsize, folks who are just starting out, folks who want to transition to a different housing model. And so ADUs is one of the tools. It's not the be all end all, but it's one of the tools to help diversify the housing stock. So the state's trying to make it easier to do that. And really, the way I think about it is they're trying to treat ADUs the same as single family homes, which are allowed by right. So if you live in a residential district, you're allowed to build a single family home as long as you can have your wastewater capacity, you have your septic and you have your setbacks, pretty much you can build that house. And this is basically what the attempt is with ADUs. So Eastham has had an ADU bylaw we revised it a few years ago. We're actually ahead of the curve from the state because most of what the state put in place, we already had. So we already allowed ADUs by right in all of our residential districts, except the Seashore District, which is a unique zone. So we kept that as a special permit. But basically, we allowed it by right, and that will be retained. Really, what we're doing is some housekeeping items just to be more in line with what the state requirements are. So the state set a specific size limit for ADUs, 900 square feet. We're adjusting that to be in alignment with the state. Again, removing the special permit criteria from the Seashore. So basically treating all the residential districts the same. So your ADU is allowed by right, as long as you can meet your septic capacity and your zoning setbacks and so forth, you would be allowed to have that ADU. What we did a few years ago was to put into our ADU bylaw the requirement that these ADUs, you create these ADUs, they have to be either owner occupied or year-round rentals, because we don't want these becoming short-term rentals. So we're keeping that. That is in alignment with the state, what the state's trying to do. So we're retaining that. We're retaining the prohibition on short-term rentals. And look at my notes, I think. We're taking out, when you look at the article, there's a lot of language being struck out of it, and that really has to deal with the language around the special permit requirements. So again, we are not, we wouldn't be allowed to have these as special permits. So basically, a lot of the language that's coming out deals with that, and what's being kept is allowed by right, prohibitions on short-term rentals, and requirements for year-round occupancy or year-round rentals. So for the most part, my take on it, it's really more of a housekeeping article to make sure we're in alignment with what the state is looking to see.
Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate that. Any other questions or concerns? I don't see any. So we'll move to the community preservation articles, or otherwise known as the CPA funds. And so if you'll remember at town meeting last year, we sort of coupled a couple of these articles together, and having reviewed both the tape and my notes from town meeting last year, and both Jackie and I felt that it was best to leave them as separate articles. So we will go through and do 8A, so on and so forth. Each one will be an individual vote. And for people that are new, what the CPA funds is, if you look at your tax bill, you'll see a certain amount of money that is raised on any real estate bill that you get, and that money goes into a pool. And the town has what we call a CPA committee, and so there's a certain amount of money that goes into that every year based on the tax rate, so on and so forth, and the amount raised. So a certain amount of money goes into a fund, and that is line itemed in 8A, and you'll see that number. And then from that number, there are preset percentages of where that money goes based on the state has put values on the different areas for the CPA money. So that's kind of where, and people will have questions on that. So I like to get that out in the open. And so you'll see where the percentage is in that first article, which is 8A. So you're sort of voting on that. And then from 8B, 8C, we'll go through them individually. 8D, 8E, 8F, and 8G, and 8H allocates certain money into different, where the CPA committee has decided to fund certain requests that have come before them within the percentages that are ready to allocate. So if anybody has any questions on what the CPA committee does in town or how that works, I could take a stab at answering anybody's questions, or I'm sure some of the select board or Rich could as well. Not seeing anything there. 8A is the appropriation and reservation of the CPA money, or the CPA Act, estimated annual revenues. You can see how that all works out there. Not seeing anybody. No, nobody at home. Nobody in the select board have anything? No. Okay. So 8B is the first item that has they've asked to appropriate and transfer money, which is Massasoit Road, 580 Massasoit Road for community housing. You'll see a number there that they have, a request has been made for a certain amount of money, and the committee has, as you can see, has voted to recommend that.
We have one question.
We have a question on,
I guess in
on,
person.
come on up, please. Is this question on CPA in general or on 8B? Just so
8B.
Okay, good.
Keith Burrett, Lucinda Court. I think I remember, but I'm not positive, that last year you appropriated $740,000 plus $760,000. My math is right, it's 1.5 million.
That's correct.
For the second and third floor of that building. And you want housing. Well, the second floor is probably going to accommodate 2 people. This third floor, 1, maybe 2 people. So we're talking 4 people at 1.5 million. Today,
Last year was to renovate the downstairs
Exterior.
and the exterior for historic purposes. It wasn't for housing.
still a lot of money to pump into that building.
Mhm.
At 5 o'clock this afternoon, in the multiple listing, Cape Cod multiple listing in Eastham at 2705 State Highway, Eastham, there's an 8-family complex for 1.95 million. 22 rooms, 8 bedrooms, 8.5 bathrooms. Now, if your goal is housing, it would seem that would be a much better buy than doing something at 580 Massasoit and getting 3, maybe 4 occupants in that building. It seems much better use of money. At 704 State Highway, there's a two-family, 7 rooms, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 1,844 square feet for 900,000. That's a multifamily. Single-family dwellings, under $900,000, again at 5 o'clock this afternoon. 7 buildings avail, 7 homes available, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms. Seems to be able to handle significantly more people in a housing situation than a 2-room, a 2-person, 3, maybe 4-person. Okay, let's throw out the 740, even at 760. That doesn't seem to be a good use of tax dollars in my sense. And the preservation,
So I think the issue for you is the reason it's on the town meeting warrant is for the town to vote yes or no on it. So I think it sounds like for you, the answer is no, and that's easy. But if we just go back, these decisions don't happen in one lift. And if we go back, the reason we purchased this building was because it's the oldest building.
right, I have no problem with that.
Okay,
But you're spending a lot of money on trying to,
but let me talk. I let you
Okay.
talk. Let me talk. It was for sale. The COA had the first floor as the thrift shop.
Mhm.
And it was a really unique building to
Right,
Eastham.
not to
And we
mention-
didn't think twice about it. We were like, we have to have it. So we purchased it. So that was the first lift. The second lift is, since we purchased it, then we have to at least fix it up so that it can last the next few, 25 years or so. It needs new siding, it needs new roof, it needs a lot of things. So that was the first piece.
got it?
And then this piece is because we also, if we're going to use, since we're putting money into the building, this was the conversation that staff had, honestly. We're going to spend $750 or $760 to do the outside of the building. And then what? Then we won't be able to use the housing because you need to have a sprinkler system to have the housing units and the retail in one building. So we learned some things and we said to ourselves, why do it in 2 stages? Why not just go back, wait to do the exterior renovations, go back and ask town meeting if they want to do this or not? It's not that we looked at the building and we said it would be perfect for housing. It's that we looked at the building and we decided to save it as a historic structure. And then we asked ourselves, okay, if we spend this amount of money, we can get 2 housing units. And I know you think that they're small housing units, but we have a lot of single people and small families that need housing. So to us, it's 2 housing units and a retail unit and the restoration of the oldest building.
But in order to have residential properties there, you've got to make the building ADU compliant, which is going to destroy some of the historic authenticity.
No, we do
Certainly is,
not.
Certainly is.
We do not have to
Wait,
make,
You have to
Sir,
get a
sir,
work-
excuse me. Hold on, we're not necessarily debating the article. And this is the CPA committee, not necessarily the town administrator's decision to fund this. So.
but
is
we
there-
don't have to make it ADA
No, I
compliant.
understand.
He's
It-
incorrect.
Okay.
That's
Is
not
there-
my understanding. My understanding, you have to make it ADU compliant. And
Well-
you're going to destroy the interior of the commercial from what it was as a grocery store shop, whatever you want to call it, corner, whatever,
factory.
at this point. And a ramp on the outside is not something that is appropriate for that age building.
You're wrong. I don't know what else to say. It's,
Just-
that's not
wrong.
correct.
When was the
All right,
last time
well,
you saw
sir.
an 1800s building with a ADU ramp?
That is not the plan for the building, sir. Why don't we talk offline?
Okay.
Because that's not the plan.
Is there anyone, just out of curiosity, here from the CPA committee? Because Mr.
Paul
Hobbs.
represents this.
Mary is too.
Um,
Mary,
Oh,
Well, Mary voted against this, so
Okay.
don't ask
Well,
her.
why don't we,
you want Paul?
Dave, why don't you give us a 30-second kind of just what the thought process was? And again, we're not debating the article that's not what tonight's here for, but it just maybe a little bit of the process and.
Well, the town approached the CPA committee requesting these funds, and we debated And there were several people at the beginning that were dead set against it. And they, for the same exact reasons that there was this much money going into this building. But the fact of the matter is the town already owned the building. And so now we're basically talking about what are we gonna do with the second floor and the third floor? And the number came up, what is it, 760,000 to refurbish the second floor and the third floor. When you look at all the developments that are going on the Cape in Orleans and down in Truro and Wellfleet, when you look at one of those units, the price for that, I believe, is close to 650,000 a unit. And so here we're talking 2 units, so $1.2 million for the 2. And we're actually only asking for 760,000. So when you look at it on the grand scale, it's not that expensive. It sounds like big numbers, and it is big numbers, but it's just phenomenal what it costs to build a rental unit. And so after we debated this quite a bit, we all came to the conclusion, or I shouldn't say all, but mostly we came to the conclusion that it was a good investment from the CPA committee to go along with what the town wanted.
Just to add on to what Dave is saying, just keep in mind also that it's not the whole 760. We're equating that to the 2 units, but it's just an incremental amount because we would be spending some money on the building envelope anyway. So it's not 760 or nothing. It's some amount of money, and I don't know. I don't want to speak to what it is. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but perhaps half or some amount of that 760 would have gone to the building envelope, and we're spending that money and still don't have an underutilized town building with no second or third floor. So it's an incremental amount over that. So it's not the full 760.
And I guess I want to circle back. So a lot of times I see on Facebook people saying, well, why don't we just sell something? We'll just sell it, right? So, and that would be fine. If that's what you guys choose to do, we could do that. But we would sell the building, give the CPA back their money for the historic building, and then someone else would come and probably make a single family home out of that building, and it wouldn't be, we would lose not only the historic building, but the historic use of the building too. So it's just, it's fighting for those little pieces of Cape Cod that make Cape Cod, right? And this is one of those buildings. How many, since I've been here, we've let more houses go because someone came in and wanted to buy them, and they said, we'll give you the house if you move it somewhere or whatever, we're going to build something else. And we look at these houses and we go, okay, it would be, $350,000 just to move it a mile down the road to this town-owned site or whatever. And we always end up saying no. So this was the first time since I've been here that we've looked at a building and said, we can't lose this. We need to buy it. So we're in it, and we can be out of it. But we're in the middle of it now. So we either have to go back, I think, and just divest from it, or we have to move forward and fix it up and make it the gem that it should be. Those are really the 2 choices, because we can't just leave it suffering in the middle here.
Thank you. And thank you, Dave. And sir, you will get your chance on town meeting.
You still have a hand up. We have a hand up online still.
Oh, okay. Hand
Let's
online.
not forget about Thomas.
Okay.
Promoting Thomas again to talk.
Okay, so I think about this property and the other 2 properties in 4E and D or whatever it is. There's operating expenses, and there's rental income that comes from them. How is that broken out in the budget each year? How do we know how much it's costing us to keep those properties up and running for us taxpayers?
So a few years ago, town meeting adopted a rental revolving fund, which basically takes these properties and the rents outside of our general fund and outside of our budget. So there's a separate fund set aside to accumulate rents, and we use those rents to maintain the buildings. So at the moment, there's no taxpayer impact on the properties that we've been acquiring.
Thank you, Rich. Mr. LaMontagne, did that answer your question?
Well, I mean, there's obviously management costs that are associated with taking care of these properties. That's in there too. Does the rent cover that? I kind of wonder, especially with this place that we're talking 760,000 on. I mean, you're not going to get that back in rental revenue. You know,
So right now, we have two positions that might, other than general administrative services, that might provide for some work associated with this, but really two positions that work in this realm. One is our affordable housing coordinator. That is funded by our tax rate, is in our operating budget. The second is our facilities director. The facilities director is paid 50% out of our rental revolving fund because he does provide services to these properties in lieu of hiring outside contractors at a higher cost.
okay, so there is some overhead associated with these places that isn't being paid off with the rental. That's all I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, I think we're using we have a town, we're paying DPW workers, we're paying Rachel, our housing coordinator, we're paying these individuals to take care of, for instance, 8 or 9 town buildings already. So adding some buildings to that adds some work. And so we hired this new person to coordinate all the maintenance, but that's really the only extra expense we've had.
Thank you, Jackie.
I guess I'd summarize that by saying, there is an incremental cost to obviously maintaining a building, but it hasn't caused us to hire additional personnel to do so. And any expenses directly related to those properties are paid out of the rental revolving fund through the rents.
Thank you, Rich. Seeing nothing else, we'll take a look at Article 8C, the Cape Housing Institute. And this is to appropriate and transfer $10,000 from the Community Preservation Fund to the Cape Housing Institute. Seeing no, bless you.
That's true.
Seeing no questions or comments on that. Article 8D is Eastham Elementary School playground upgrades. And I believe if you've been to the elementary school, this is the playground behind the school, that you can't see from Schoolhouse Road, but
Scott,
yes.
let me get a hand up in the back.
I knew I'd get you to the mic.
Hi, I'm Christine Schmidt at 370 Meeting House Road, and I am all for, supporting the schools and the money's going to improve the playground. I just have a couple of questions. I don't know if anybody here knows. Is that playground used at night for school programs?
I don't know.
Yes.
Mary Shaw is saying yes.
What kind of outside night programs?
How do you know?
The town has a program that
Hold it.
operates after the school hours.
It's not at night.
It's not at night.
But it's not after dark.
No.
Right. And the rec program, Eastham Rec, doesn't do anything after dark on the school
If
playground?
they, not in the playground, they do stuff in the gym after.
In the gym,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I'm just curious about why there need to be so many lights on in that playground area every night. The lights are on, they're bright. And, going back to the town planning issues, I don't know if there's anything in the books about light pollution or mitigation of light pollution, but it is a real issue. It's an environmental concern. The damage has been studied.
And are you saying the field is lit or is it the elementary school?
The field is lit.
Field, okay.
Those
Well,
lights are on all night,
so
every
the-
night.
Okay, So that's a question.
That's something we need
yeah,
to
It's a
check
great question, but it would not be part of the article itself.
I understand.
But I
Yeah.
just wanted to, maybe Jackie will make a note and try to get you an answer.
Right, since it is on the plan, I figured this would be an opportunity to bring up that question. And, I know it affects people who live in the neighborhood, and it affects their quality of life. So, that would be great if.
Would you be
look into
kind
it.
enough to write your email or telephone number down on a piece of paper that we could?
Oh, Amy knows where to find
All
me.
right.
I got it.
All right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So with that, we'll move to Article 8E, which is Wiley Park Trailhead kiosks. Okay. Not seeing anybody with any issues on the Wiley Park Trailhead kiosk or questions. We'll move to Article 8F, which is historic property surveys. Not seeing anybody wants to jump in and tackle that one, so we'll move along to 8G, which is an open space land purchase 20 Deacon Payne. And I imagine our town administrator might have something quick to say about that.
I don't.
Dave, do you have anything to say about that?
I'm
No.
sorry, I don't.
Mary?
I know the area, and this is an area where the Eastham Conservation Foundation has a lot of land. The town has some, so it makes sense to me that it's adjacent to land that's already sort of in a conservation state.
Now, would something like this be from the owner who approached the town, or? Okay.
Usually, or
Okay.
vice versa, the committee might have approached.
Okay. Great. All right, that's 8G. And then 8H is friends or relatives with autism and related disabilities. Not seeing anybody with any questions or comments on Article 8H. So we will move to the citizen petition article. And this is what I kind of alluded to in the beginning of our meeting. This is going to be a petitioned article, which goes through the proper protocol to have a number of signatures. It's a citizen petition in this particular case, where the petitioner is asking their fellow voters, or in this particular case, they're asking voters to adopt this petitioned article. So I don't know, and as I said, what I've spoken to the petitioner, which I've done every year that I've been moderator, I've met with a petitioner article where sometimes we have energy articles, sometimes we have environmental articles, whatever the article was, we've had over my 6 or 7 town meetings now, met with the petitioner to try to get an understanding of the article from my purposes, so I can explain and guide as we're there at town meeting. In this particular case, again, I checked with town council to make sure that everything was being done in a proper manner. The article does need to be moved by a registered voter. It needs to be seconded by a registered voter. And then normal procedure will be, then I will, if we get a motion and a second, then what I will do is I'll ask the petitioner to speak to the article, 3-4 minutes, always suggest to people that they, their ducks in a row, make their points, because everybody has about a 3 to 4 minute window. Then what I'll do is normally I will ask if anybody on the select board would like to speak to it. And then I will also ask if anybody on the finance committee would like to speak to it as well as a general protocol. And then what we'll do is we'll get into calling on people that come to the microphones. And so that's going to be how it's going to roll out. As if you've been to town meeting before, there's generally set up, and we've done this already with Jackie, and the police chief and the fire chief. We've set up how we want the auditorium to work. There'll be an area, so if your back is to the stage, on the left-hand side, there'll be an area for non-resident registered voters, and they'll sit there, and depending on how this plays out, they'll be, if they choose to speak to this article, they'll come up and address the microphone, tell me their name, where they're from, so on and so forth, and we'll kind of go from there.
Scott, can you go over again? So at the beginning of the meeting, you usually ask town meeting to vote on whether or not town meeting would like to allow non-residents to speak. So you're gonna still do that, but then when it comes to this article, are you gonna do that vote again? Or have you already just made the decision that non-residents will be allowed to speak and it will not be up to town meeting to vote?
That is correct. So
Okay.
what I've done, if you look in the, as I said, I referenced the page in the warrant, which addresses the responsibility of the moderator to ask the fellow voters in town whether or not they wish to have non-resident voters. But again, when we ever get to that article, that then, you know, as the moderator, I think you have a responsibility to, this is the business of the town. And one of the roles of the moderator is to get the business of the town before you. And so I'll use an example. If there's a school article that becomes contentious one way or the other, to not allow the school committee, if they don't live, you know, the regional school committee, because they don't live in Eastham, or the superintendent of schools not to speak to you, is doing a disservice to you as a community. So in this particular case, because this is a petitioned article by a non-resident taxpayer, I'm going to carve out this article as a separate article, and we're not going to have a vote on whether the citizens want, or, you know, for non-resident taxpayers. And I've spoken to a variety of people before I made that kind of final decision. So yeah, it will be divided out. All of the articles within the warrant up until the petition article number 9 will be one set of rules, and this will be a second set of rules.
So I just have a question.
Yep.
Okay, just procedural. So you're saying you will, so for this one, it will be a pass, the non-resident taxpayers will be able to speak.
That is
Yep.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, now when we do that, just like we do when we have our meetings, I'm just curious procedurally, we ask folks to clarify if they have their permanent residence in Eastham, and if they have, if their residence in Eastham is a second home, to state that before they speak. So when they're stating the address, they would say, my name is Jamie Dimitri. I own a house at 45 Kier Drive, but my residence is 5 Main Street, Newton. So just to clarify the residency status before they speak to the article.
Well, yeah, so they're not going to have a voter, you know, and you have to carry your thing with you. So I'm going to be able to identify that they don't have one of those when they approach the,
They're gonna have stickers, I think.
they're going to come from a specific area. So I'm going to be able to see that. And again, I'm trying to temper down anticipated, you know, they're not going to be able to vote, so they're not going to have a sticker, or they're not going to have a calculator, you know, the clicker. So my goal is to give a number of them an opportunity to speak to it. And I'm going to, unless I'm proven wrong, I'm going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt that they're there on a Monday evening in Eastham in early May. And they're going to tell me where they live, and they're going to have the appropriate way. And I think it'll work out just fine.
Okay, I asked only because we have had some issues where that procedure wasn't followed. And so I just want to make
Okay.
sure for the sake of the voters that they understand the information that they're hearing, they know who it's coming from. I think that's important.
Absolutely. No, and I think we will reiterate, you know, name, street address, whether you're, you know, primary or you know,
Yep.
registered voter or secondary resident. I think that's clear.
Thank you.
Those should
You
be-
want to,
Because we're all taxpayers and we all have a voice as taxpayers. And if we are not residents, we don't have the right to vote. So that's where the difference comes in. But when it comes to speaking, we're all taxpayers. Why would it be different to know if it was a part-timer or a full-timer? Why? What's the difference?
That's
Sorry,
why
Amy.
it's set up in the procedures for all the other articles. He's going to allow a vote because that's non-voters who wish to address town meeting have identified themselves in advance and may only speak if permitted by the body that's there. So that's the procedure. So if he's allowing you outside of that to speak, it
So-
would be good for the people there that are voters to know who is presenting and who is speaking. That's all.
Thank you.
And I'm very confident in all the residents of Eastham that will get an opportunity for the petitioned articles and the people that have strong feelings one way or the other on this article, an opportunity to speak. I'm confident in my fellow, people, and I've been an Eastham resident for a long time, both as a secondary homeowner and a primary homeowner, as well as a business owner. And, everyone that owns in Eastham is my neighbor and, or my friend, and they will, we're going to do a nice job. And I think when we're done, 2 weeks from yesterday, I think everyone will think that we had a good town meeting, and I'm very, very confident in that. So, I don't know if anybody else has any specific questions. Yeah.
We done with that topic about the petition article? I want to change the subject.
Well, aren't you something?
I know.
Aren't you? I'm not sure we're completely done. So you hang out there. This young lady right here,
You need to
Come up to the
go
microphone.
out to the mic.
come on up.
Kick Terry out of your spot.
No.
No.
That's right there.
No.
Okay, well, my comments are largely for the people sitting behind me.
So, you can move your chair around if you
Yeah.
want to.
Just speak into the mic, please.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. My name is Wendy Gamba. I'm a part-time resident at 5 Bayview Avenue, and a butter to the school where all the lights are on. I'm here representing the warrant article 9A, requesting that the Eastham Select Board obtain an independent consultation for the next 3 years of tax strategies so that taxpayers know what to expect in their mailbox, given recent infrastructure costs, overrides, and tax abatements driving the tax bills. This article presents an opportunity for the taxpayers to send a message to the Select Board that this issue is important and timely. This extra set of eyes could very well validate the actions that have been taken to date. This would provide great comfort to the taxpayers and help us move forward collectively. And it could provide additional important insights to how to make our community better. This is akin to getting a second opinion. What's wrong with getting a second opinion? This article connects the need for existing program evaluation with increased ability for taxpayers to plan and understand, together with the town's ability to provide relief for those who need it. There are several Massachusetts institutes that provide these services being requested. The consortium of year-round residents and part-time residents involved in putting forward this article have had discussions with these organizations, and we're happy to make an introduction to the town. There are likely additional options available if the net is cast beyond the eastern half of Massachusetts. In the rebuttal to the citizens' petition, there are not less than 4 references made to consultants who have bettered our processes and outcomes. We should continue this work to enable future planning for taxpayers. The suggestion in the rebuttal to engage community discussions should be part of this is right on target with what we're suggesting. We fully support including the suggestions in the warrant as part of these proposed next steps.
Excuse me, Wendy.
Yes.
And again, this is not a make your case. This is kind of a questions. So I've cut other people off. So I have to be very careful that I don't. But so you're petitioning the article, and everyone's having an opportunity to read the article, and you'll be making your case on select or on a town meeting floor. Are there any questions on the procedure? Yes, sir. You want to come up and ask your question? This is not a yes or a no, or this is a question on
The article.
the article.
Why was the select board 0, 4, and 1 and the finance commission 0, 9, and 0 on this? Do they know that I don't know?
Question.
Again, I think, so is there any narrative from either the select board or the finance committee in this?
Yes,
There is a narrative.
there's a 5-page summary, town summary after
Okay.
the article.
I believe it's on page.
Starts on page 50
There it is.
and goes to page 55.
I'm sure the finance committee would love to give a report at town meeting if you want them to do that, Scott.
Well, Mr. Moderator, maybe I'll just offer a couple
Well-
brief comments, if you don't mind on
And
that.
again, we're not debating the
No,
article, we're debating.
Well, the question was asked.
You're right. No, I understand.
The
So-
question was asked.
I know, I want to answer the question. So there is a narrative in the article, or that has been provided in the warrant. And Rich, if you have something specific to the.
I do. So the question was asked, why 09? And so speaking for the finance committee, not necessarily for the select board, because I spend as the finance director of the town an inordinate amount of time with the finance committee the previous 6 months.
And they with
And-
you too.
And and they have a very comprehensive process. We have one of the most comprehensive financial planning processes anywhere in the state. You can count among them small towns or large cities. And we were very accurate and precise with our calculations and more often than not, we're pretty spot on with what we are expecting. And so I just want to summarize in about 45 seconds what that process is, because it starts in every summer before we even contemplate the next year's budget with a multi-year financial projection of the operating budget and the capital budget. And we look and we take that projection to see where we may be going. And then the month later, after the end of the year closes, we do a recap of the results of the prior year and how did that compare to what we expected in the last year's projection. We go through a comprehensive capital improvement plan process in the fall, and we have second and third opinions with capital planning committees and CPA committees and the finance committee and the select board, all giving their recommendations on all these articles and on these capital improvement plans and all these projects. So there's plenty of discussion, all recorded, all on our website to be viewed and watched. We go through a preliminary draft budget process late fall, including salary projections of all our staff and collective bargaining units. We come up with a draft budget early January, have a joint meeting of the finance committee and the select board in early January to review that draft, and a final budget hearing in March to review the final product. In between January and March, the finance committee literally meets every single week and meets with every single department head to justify every single item in their budget. Every department has a budget book that has very detailed line items justifying why they think they need what they are asking for. And the finance committee evaluates that, asks them questions. Some are easier than others. And that is all part. So this is a year-round process. And so there is on our financial planning page on our town website, if you ever are interested and want to take a half a day or maybe a couple days to review it all, you're welcome to review that whole process. There's a calendar that's set out a year in advance going over all this. And the finance committee's job is, I give them a lot of credit, it is a year-round job.
And if Rich or for anybody on the finance committee, if anybody had a question that's in the audience or planning on being at town meeting specifically about budgetary or questions, could they find your email on the website?
Absolutely. And hopefully we'll be putting out a video and people can respond to that video or just email me or call me. I've held myself available and I've met with a handful. We get a lot of comments, but a lot of people don't always take me up on my offer to call me or email me. We have been holding weekly office hours at the library and had a good turnout there and some good questions and some good discussion on the budget. And I don't think people, when they actually sit down and talk to us, they think of these things in a vacuum. And when you talk to us, you realize that, sometimes there's a little bit more to some of these things and there's good reasoning behind a lot of what we do. And that's what the finance committee is good in checking us in that regard.
Before I have Wendy do any closing comments, is there anybody else who has a procedural question or a general question about the petitioned article? How we're gonna, yes, ma'am, come on up.
No, you need.
No,
to
I
come up
would
with
really
a
like you to come
microphone
to
for
the
television.
It's the people on the
We have
Zoom.
21
Yeah.
people on Zoom.
I was just thinking, now, do you think that if the town of Eastham is leaving the town water phase and now entering the town wastewater phase, that it might be like, you could compare it to like going into surgery? You would ask for a second opinion from another surgeon. Just, don't you think it's just a second opinion? You know your surgeon's good. You just want a second opinion.
Right, that's largely the thinking behind this. And just like we discussed in the purchase of the house in Article 8A, the decision to purchase that house actually has tax implications for FY '27. That's not clear from this decision being made next 2 weeks from last Friday. So it's those kinds of things where there are multi-year implications to decisions that are being made that need to be consolidated and be able to be presented to taxpayers so that they know what the bill in the mail is going to be, next year, the year after. We specifically picked a 3-year window because, let's face it, in any kind of planning, years 4 and 5 are just an extrapolation of year 3. But with the talent that we have with our fabulous assistant town administrator, we have the information to be able to put this together. If we can offer a little support to be able to make this more transparent to taxpayers and look at this from the bottom up as opposed to the top down. When you ask questions about taxes, you often get responses about tax rates and assessments and a lot of technical details. The answer that hits home is what's going to hit in the mailbox. And so if we can figure out what people are going to have coming forward in the next couple years, that will allow them to plan. And another important part of this is to review the taxpayer assistance relief funds to make sure that they're operating as efficiently as possible. There's some great programs. This, contrary to what the rebuttal says, we 100% support tax relief for people who need it. There are many programs, and I've got a list of them here, but I don't think he's going to let me talk to them. They just need additional review and consideration to make sure they are meeting the needs of the people who need assistance.
Thank you. Sounds like we'll have some lively discussion on May 5th. So thank you for that. And
Mr. Moderator?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but there is some misunderstanding or misinformation that we need to correct.
Well, if it's in the article,
Yes.
let's let the article get petitioned and you'll have an opportunity.
Well, there's some, there's
right.
an implication that there is a tax impact. There is no tax impact to the CPA articles. CPA funds are a 3% surcharge in your real estate tax. That's state law, and that's what the town of Eastham has adopted. It's up to the CPC committee to determine recommendations to town meeting to spend that money. This spending from any of these CPA articles is money on hand. It is not new tax money. There's no tax rate impact to any of these CPC articles. If there is a tax rate impact, not the rate, the actual dollar cost or increase in your actual property tax amount, it is disclosed in the Finance Committee report and in the summary of each article that it does have an impact.
Part of the tax strategy that we're talking about is that the CPA allows for 10% for each of the 4 categories. This year, they made the housing category 30%, which is a fabulous tax strategy. The response says that they follow the law. They do, but there's flexibility in the law, and that ought to be included in the thinking going forward, given where we are in this and with our tax bills currently.
Okay. You will have your opportunity. I promise. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Town Administrator, anything further for the good of the order?
No, thank you.
I want to thank the Select Board for their time and Rich and
Oh, wait.
Kayla. Yes. All right.
Yeah. About the wastewater, I guess.
Oh, you're very welcome.
John Terrence Gallagher, 150 Thoreau. I'm wondering about page 2. We kind of skipped over that.
Page 2.
Page 2.
And I'm not going to ask about
Oh, yeah.
2.5.
page 2.
I'm curious about this Holtec item. How did this get here?
That was a petition.
I'm sorry, page 3.
That was a petitioned
It
ballot
was-
question.
Petitioned article.
Okay, is it part of a coordinated campaign with other towns? Do we know
think
about this
so.
too? or-
Perhaps.
Yeah,
I'm aware that it's on the Provincetown town warrant
and
also.
probably, they're probably a group.
Okay,
So I don't know who will,
So this is the
There's no-
extent of the public record on this at this point?
That's correct.
We don't know more about the petition.
I do have some information. I can get it to you tomorrow, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Anything else?
you wanna-
Oh,
oh, what's not on the warrant?
so if we go to page 5, what is not on the warrant, construction funds for wastewater treatment and collection system. We had a significant hiccup at the end of January. So we were moving towards this town meeting, presenting you with a wastewater plan for construction of a system. And at the end of January, the state revolving fund intended use plan came out in draft form, and Eastham was on the plan but not funded. So we were a few points down from the cutoff line of funding. There were 57, I think, projects, and 24 of them were funded. There was an appeals process, so we kind of stopped in our tracks because I think part of, the state is responding to what's happening on the federal level, and so they were nervous about committing funds, so there were less funds to commit is basically what happened. They allowed an appeals process. We appealed their decision, and about a week and a half ago, when the final plan was distributed, Eastham was on the plan and funded for a guaranteed funding for the entire project and $50 million for the first year. So obviously that was too late to get it in this warrant. So we are having a special town meeting this year in June 23rd at 5:30, just to do the wastewater vote. And we will be doing several community sessions at the library and here and other places. I'm going to go back to the COA. We're also going to have some special meetings with the neighborhood around the transfer station, because that's the site of the treatment or the proposed treatment. So you will be able to vote on wastewater this year. It's just going to be at a special separate town meeting. Just wanted to let everyone know that. And
Can I
Rich?
add just a couple
Yep.
important tidbits? It does, we understand that this might seem a bit rushed, but it's super important, because the other thing that was in the final IUP was not only that we were being funded, but we're being guaranteed funding for the entire project. Also in that IUP, the DEP, the SRF program indicated next year that is not the case. They're not guaranteeing project funding. And in addition, the terms that we currently can obtain, hopefully 0% financing, are hugely favorable, and are anticipating that those may not be available, or at least to the extent they're available now, in future funding rounds. So adding interest on top of a project, especially if they're not guaranteeing full funding of the project and requiring us to go out at market rate and borrow our own money for the project, adds tens of millions of dollars, which makes the project unaffordable. So there's that. So they need our decision, an approval, by June 30th, unfortunately, which is the haste of the special town meeting. And we felt important that you understand the cost ramification of doing something now versus doing something later, and we're leaving it to the town meeting to help decide that question. We understand the rush to this. But the other part is, it's not all or nothing. It's not, we could do wastewater or we could not do wastewater. It's, we could do wastewater, or we'll be mandated in the future for all properties to put in innovative alternative septic systems, which wouldn't increase your taxes, but would cost you significantly more money as an individual property owner than what it would cost you to have it on your taxes. And so that's all part of the outreach that we're hoping to do in the next several weeks, and get you specific information that you can measure how you feel about that.
Please clear June 23rd on your calendar and attend the meeting.
Scott?
Okay. Mr. Hobbs.
Hi, Dave Hobbs, 190 Sparrowhawk Lane. Rich, are you saying that the state is guaranteeing that they will fund $160 million wastewater treatment system entirely?
Yeah, or 170 million.
170 million.
Okay, thank you.
Whereas, if we wait to next year, if they even funded us for the full 50 million that they'll give anyone in 1 year, there's no guarantee that they'll give you the next 120, which means you got to borrow it yourself.
Correct. Okay.
Thank you, Dave. It just gives another whole definition to free cash, doesn't it?
It was free.
All right. Well, if the good of the order, don't see anybody else with any questions. I just want to thank everybody for joining us, both live and on Zoom, and look forward to seeing everybody on the 5th of May at 5:30 at the newly renovated high school, almost complete. So we're very excited to get the business of the town underway.
Exciting in the new auditorium.
It would be very nice if there'll be a couple surprises for everybody for that. If you haven't been there before, you're going to be very, very pleased. It's beautiful. So looking forward to it. Thanks very much for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you all.
And we still have some business to take care of. So if you leave, please do
Quietly,
so quietly.
we'll be have a meeting.
I guess they didn't listen to me.
Okay, let me.
Yeah, we're working on it. It's okay. We're going to do it.
All right, if folks don't mind just taking your conversation in the hallway so we can finish our meeting. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Those are the two things we need to do.
Yeah. The open and closing warrants on there,
Okay, good.
but the other one, we'll do it under that. Okay. All right, we have licensing.
Yes.
Winter Bottom Ice Cream LLC, doing business as Perry's Cape Cod Ice Cream Truck.
We're gonna do both of them together?
Yeah.
I move that we approve the hawker and peddler license for truck number 1 and truck number 2 for Winter Bottom Ice Cream, and to approve the common vicular license for Nauset Ice Cream.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a quick question, and maybe for Nasa Ice Cream, it said there's 200 parking
I
spaces.
also saw that.
Well, it's that whole town center plaza.
Maybe
Is
200?
that really 200?
Doesn't seem
don't-
like that many. Does
seem
Town
like
Center
two.
Plaza have 200 parking spaces?
Paul's shaking his head.
Oh.
Yeah. Maybe 60, 70.
Be nice to have that a little more accurate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of area that's unmarked.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a game changer for the
200,
boat.
yeah.
It's just,
I also saw that. And I was
I was like,
It's big.
yeah.
I don't know.
At least 100.
She'll,
Yeah.
they'll
100
clarify.
Maybe wouldn't.
So do you want me to change
No,
the motion to?
no, they could,
No,
Clarify?
it
No,
was
you
just-
just want to be clarified.
Yeah.
I'll have Kendra clarify with them and
Great.
just
Yeah, it's not a
Thanks.
huge deal.
Maybe they just didn't know and they were like, we'll just
Well, yes.
pick a number between 0 and 2.
all right, any more discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? 5-0. All right, next, town election voting options. So I believe they did sort of like we did for our election, the annual election, to opt out of early in-person voting,
Mhm,
opt out of vote by mail,
mhm.
but opt in to absentee voting,
This is for the June 24th
24th.
election on the borrowing.
For the special,
For the special.
special
for the
election,
special.
for the special
Yep.
town meeting.
Is that the 24th?
Correct.
Is it,
Is it
24th. It's the day after
the
the
day after?
town meeting, and it would be,
But not the-
I believe the hours, they recommend the polling hours of 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yes.
And I suppose if someone can't make that, they can definitely vote absentee up until, I believe, the day before.
mhm.
So we'll just make sure we publicize that. So some working people probably wouldn't be able to make it those hours.
Right, and the absentee voting is no excuse. So you just say
Right.
one absentee ballot, you
Exactly.
can receive it. You
Yep.
don't have to give any reason.
I believe you can either receive them by mail or come in and do it in person.
You can
Like,
call, you can ask for
yes.
it. Yeah, you have to ask for it
Right.
though.
All right, so we need to vote the in-person early voting option, the vote by mail, the absentee, and the hours.
Okay.
Uh,
You want me to do it? I move we accept the annual, the voting options for the June 24th special town election as presented by the town clerk for no in-person early voting, no vote by mail, but absentee voting, and the hours being 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Second.
All right, any more discussion on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 5-0. All right, now we have
Town warrant.
the opening of the warrant
do you need
for
a
the
motion
special.
For both?
For the
Do
special.
you need a motion for both?
Mhm.
I move that we open we open the warrant for the special town meeting on June
May 5th.
3rd. Oh, May.
No,
5th.
It's different. We
Yeah,
didn't
we're
change
gonna,
it.
May
this
5th.
was a draft. So that's what I was gonna talk about first.
Oh,
ahead.
okay,
That's all right.
sorry, my bad.
So sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead,
So
Jerry,
go
do
ahead,
it
you
all.
go ahead and give us the dates that we,
So what we'd like to do is open the town meeting warrant on May 5th, this town meeting date, because
okay.
you're all together. And, but
Okay.
you can vote this tonight. We're going to have an ad that's going to run in the paper the week before the 5th to remind people that it's open. And then we'll close it on the 16th because we have to have that warrant to the printers on the 19th. Okay?
Okay.
So we don't actually need to vote on anything right now?
No, you do. You need
Yes.
to
To vote on
vote
those
to
dates.
open on May 5th and close on
the 16th.
the 16th.
Okay, and that's different than
Right.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry.
May 6th.
than what's in the packet?
Yep.
Well, Jerry.
Oh, you want me to
Now
vote?
we're-
Okay.
There's
I
no
move.
Sticky note.
I move that we open the warrant for the special town meeting for June 24th.
June
on-
23rd.
For June 23rd, excuse me. And the warrant will open on Monday, May 5th, 2025, and close on Friday,
Friday? I
Friday,
think it's Friday. Because the 19th is a Monday.
Friday?
Friday.
Friday, May 16th, 2025 at 4 p.m.
Second.
All
Thank
right,
you.
everybody got that?
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 5-0.
Are we going to assign articles?
That's
Right
next.
now.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't see- Okay, I was like,
I thought I
It
missed
wasn't
it
in the
at some
agenda.
point.
It wasn't in the agenda
Yeah.
for, yeah,
Bob, you should turn.
We're going to sally for it.
yes.
It's part of special town meeting. I mean, the pre,
Yeah, all right,
it's okay.
it's okay. No,
I
no,
do
no.
love this. This is great. Now it'll be
Oh, the motions.
I'll be able to keep it between now and then.
All right. So revolving accounts. Who wants it?
I don't want to do any of them.
This is a biggie. We fight
Yeah.
over
The
this
biggie,
every
come
year.
on.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure, they should do that.
sure.
Suzanne, all right.
Yes.
Two,
This is
2A,
great, by
operating
the way.
budget.
Thank you. This little, to write everybody's name. this
I'll
little
do the operating budget.
Oh, she had,
Jerry?
Jerry, okay.
2A.
2A, yeah.
I gotta put JER because we have too many J's here. Water Enterprise Fund operating budget. Okay, Bob. 5-year capital improvement plan.
It's a combined motion, 3 and
Yeah, I would
Three.
do.
Historically, we've been able to do 3A and 3B, and Scott's allowed us to do that together because,
Okay,
but we have a motion in case he doesn't, we can do each.
I see, I see.
then the same person, whoever takes the combined can break it up if need be.
Okay, I can do
You
that.
wanna do
do
that,
that,
Jamie?
Jamie.
Okay.
So I'll do, so it's that one, but then the two right after it are the asterisks if it doesn't pass as
Yeah.
combined.
Hmm. All right, 4A, other budget appropriations.
Oh, I can do that one, that's fine.
Okay, Jerry, prudent investment rule.
Take it.
Okay,
That one.
I'll do the wastewater enterprise. And I'll do actually the next three.
Oh,
State highway housing, 2 of them, and seasonal communities.
it's nice.
Wait,
Take
that's
that.
4D.
No, that's.
No.
For
Or
C, D, and E.
Right, okay.
And then 5A
Okay. It's all you.
is all me.
Wow.
Jamie, did you want the transfer fee?
I mean,
Yeah, that's, yeah, that's what I
Or
had. I had
Jerry.
Jamie for that.
Yeah.
The zoning,
Who's doing transfer fee?
Jamie.
Okay, just.
Yeah.
ask a
Turn your microphone on.
On the
Bob.
transfer.
Bob. Your microphone.
I didn't want to do this with a whole crowd. On the transfer fee, do we ever think of an exclusion for, if you were buying one house in town, and then you were selling a house in town to buy another in town? Did that ever get discussed at all or
no.
considered?
I don't think so.
There are some
I saw the
exclusions in
exclusions and
there.
I just didn't see it.
No, I
Yeah,
don't think
again,
that one's
it may not come back like that from the state.
Right, 'cause this
So,
isn't the final.
and I'm not sure what was in the state. That might be something to look up in,
If it was in the original.
if it was
state.
in the original state one, to see what they had, because that might be something that would come back.
Yeah, it just struck me. I've moved a couple of times in Eastham over the years
Oh.
and it would get even more expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, if
I
you're trying to
know.
keep, when people leave town, you're trying to collect on their good fortune. But if they're staying in town, maybe they should be excluded. I don't know. Just wonder if that was on somebody's radar.
No, I hadn't really thought about it. But again, we should look at the state one and just see what was in there.
And that is the kind of thing too, that even if this passes, we could even send a letter endorsing other, could we send a letter?
No, because
No?
it's what passed at town meeting.
Okay.
Well, there is
Oh,
part of the
yeah.
legislative process. They do let you modify language as long
true.
as it
That's
doesn't
what I
change
thought.
the intent of the article.
Yeah, they
don't-
usually give us some.
So House Counsel will give us a ruling on whether
Yeah.
that would be allowable to add that type of thing.
And that's when you can like interject little changes that
You were-
maybe between now and that
Yeah.
a year from now,
Okay.
things you think about.
Yeah, well, exactly. Okay.
But so you were, Bob, you were kind of thinking about what used to be with capital gains in the feds. If you were selling and buying another one, you could
Yeah.
transfer it over.
Yeah, and it just struck me that we're
Similar scenario.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right,
Who's doing 6A?
Jamie. 7A, the zoning.
I'll do it if Paul hangs out with me.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Oh,
mind
yeah, no
either,
doubt.
but
Or
you
Mary,
gotta-
or Mary.
They'll probably
Let's
both
do
be there.
Mary.
Is Mary sitting
He's
there?
here.
No, not
No.
that.
Oh,
Mary
Mary
Shaw.
Shaw, not Mary Nee.
I'm like, wait, why are we gonna?
I can't see who.
I would.
Does it have to be a select board
All right, I'll
person?
do 7A. I don't mind doing 7A and 7B.
But then have them speak to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, Paul, it depends on whether the non-voters get to speak.
but he's a town employee
He's a
though.
staff.
How does that?
Staff.
Yeah.
Even when we.
Oh, my God, staff is always allowed to
Staff
speak,
is
town
different.
meeting.
to present and to answer questions.
Questions, yeah.
So I guess my question would be for those articles 7A and B, I have no problem moving the articles, but I do feel like it would make more sense after I move the article to have Paul or Mary right there to speak. to
That's
the
right.
article.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
agree.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
And I don't think they need to do a long thing. I mean,
No.
we've done a lot of, I've done nothing. They've done a lot of
Right.
public processes on this, so.
Okay, so you'll is Paul still not still?
No,
here?
he's
Will
not.
you
He'll be,
let him
don't
know?
worry,
He'll
we'll
be
get
there.
him.
So one of the things I
He's
thought
gotta
maybe
hold my hand.
we would add to this,
Yeah.
Jackie, I didn't actually had a chance to mention it to you, but probably the staff and others that are available to speak to the article, just so
Yeah.
we have a resource reference right in front of us.
Oh, on our little
It's a
slides.
good idea, yeah.
Great.
What-
Before I forget, someone did send a message somewhere. I don't know if it was an email or not. They were wondering if we're gonna have the hearing impaired screen again to type out what was being said at town meeting that like we used to have.
No, but we have the special
We have the
headphones.
headphones. My dad uses those, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because someone was asking about that.
No, they have the headphones though,
What,
Okay.
what if they're
but
like
if someone's like
deaf,
you're
deaf?
fully deaf,
Well, we're gonna have the screen this year.
Oh, we
with the
are.
Presentation. aren't
Yeah,
we?
but it won't have the, they,
It won't
what
have
we
closed
used to do
captions.
is the total
Right,
minutes of
transcript.
town
We
meeting.
just
It was a transcript.
come
Yeah.
across the
Everything
bottom.
everybody said.
Yeah.
No, it was a separate screen. I think,
Yeah.
It's a separate
on the
screen.
other side, but
I do recall
somebody asked
that.
about it and I can't remember where.
so
Yeah,
we'll just
no.
have headphones.
Just
this
the
year.
headphones.
Headphones.
And I would, if you do talk to them, I would recommend them bringing their own headphones. So the listen devices, you can either connect it to your your hearing aids if
Mm.
the person has hearing aids. But if you don't have hearing aids, but you would still like the assistance, I recommend bringing your own headphones with a jack because it's gonna be nicer than whatever
Yeah.
the
Little headphones.
whatever the high school has, which is what comes with the thing when you buy it, which is not great.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. 8A,
I mean,
CPA reservation.
I did
I-
some last year, even though I
Okay.
wanted to do them all together, and that did not go well. So
Yeah, so we're gonna, we'll split them up.
one at a time.
What's the first one?
I'll do it.
Okay, Bob, I'll do the Massasoit.
Oh, okay.
Wow, you're just going
That's it.
out.
I'm
You're
done. I'm taken.
we thank you for
That's
your
5. That's
service.
5. I got 5. Yeah.
I can do eight. I'll do any of them, but,
Yeah.
Do the next one.
I'll let you guys
So
do
I-
that.
I'll do the playground.
Jamie.
Who did 8C?
Jerry.
Jerry?
Okay.
Jerry, I'm doing
Jerry.
8C?
Jerry,
Okay,
okay.
And you want to do the playground too, Jerry?
sure, I'll do the playground.
All right.
The lights on all night.
Wiley Park.
I'll take Wiley Park. I would do any of them.
The last one, there's only one more.
Since I'm the historic property guy,
Yeah, you want to do that one?
I'll
Bob.
take,
Yeah.
8F, okay.
I'll take 8G and H if you want.
Good.
So those aren't in my little.
Oh, that looks pretty good. 1, 2,
That's it.
3,
Those.
4. Yeah, we each all have 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, good.
Right?
G and
1,
H,
2, 3.
G and H on mine.
So we're gonna,
Open
And at the
space
beginning.
and friends or relatives with autism.
I don't have it.
It's not on that. I tore out the index.
yeah, so the only thing I'll need is, Jackie will find something on the lights being on and.
Oh, yeah,
I think that there's,
You
there
know,
potentially is some.
someone complained about
new
that
stuff.
before and I let it slip between the cracks. I have not called the school, but a lot of times
Yeah,
it's
so
just a
these are-
timer issue, but I don't even know why
have to
why would we
separate
set
them
timers on a
Oh,
field that
separate.
no
Right.
one's there?
exactly.
Why I have that.
Or is it,
asterisk.
but is
No
it
one's
just,
there at
is
night.
it the whole field or is it just on the
They're saying
playground?
it's
I think it's the whole
field.
like perimeter of the field almost is lit up.
Okay,
And even if it is on at night, it should go off at like 9 o'clock or something.
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I can see it's a public place, so I can see lighting it up like we light up the
Point.
basketball courts.
Right,
But those timers go off and on. So,
yeah, it should.
yeah, I'll follow up.
So I imagine the playground can be used by others after school hours.
Yes.
Kids can go on there, so you're keeping it open a little bit later. But I think we should at least
But they're saying
have some
all night.
information.
They're saying
Yeah,
all night.
Yeah, we should, yes, find information on that because it clearly will come up.
Something's up with the timers.
I forgot G and H on this.
Yeah.
So we have to pick someone to.
Oh,
They did,
me.
they're both Suzanne.
You're gonna be me.
Yeah.
All right. We're done with the warrant?
Yep.
Okay. So on to, we did all the closing and opening, all that. Other business correspondence. I sent you all something.
Yeah.
A gentleman I know in Orleans, Rick Francolini, who's been pretty much instrumental in getting Putnam Farm operating and off the ground. They want to build a building there with refrigeration and other storage options for people that grow there so that they can distribute to farmers markets and things like that. And they're going for a grant and all they're looking for is letters of support. We don't have to do it as a full board. If people want to do it individually. That's why he thought it would be even better if people sent them individually
Oh, really?
as board members. But I thought we should talk about it rather than just sending them off and saying we're board members.
Right.
Right.
You know, as a board.
One question, it's just application for a grant. There's no issue. We're asking the town of Orleans to do any of their committees or anything to do anything. This is
Absolutely
just
not.
straight grants or
For a
everything.
state grant.
Yes.
I realistically will be like, yeah, I'll totally write a letter and then never do it. So if someone else wrote a letter.
Well, he offered if you want one written to sign, he would do that.
I'll just have to make sure there's no.
Oh, yeah.
Me.
Probably
Probably
not,
not.
but you, yeah, you
But
can
I'll
ask
double check.
Orleans, yeah.
Yeah, but if you send me.
Oh,
the
she
template,
went
I can
to
ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask my supervisor if you
Yeah.
just send me the template. Good.
So what are we thinking of doing one as a select board?
No, I don't think we should. I think we should do them individually,
But
but just with the nod of the rest of the members that,
yeah, I feel like in instances where like
Anything on the, I'll ask.
the question is, do we want to be like, I am this person on the board?
Right.
On Eastham board, because usually when I write things to people, I don't.
you don't say
put-
that.
I don't really say that.
Right, I
don't put
understand.
that I'm on the board.
Yeah.
For some reason, I think it would be mean more if it came from the select board itself, but it's up to
Right.
him. He's the person who's.
I mean, it could go either way, really. If, I suppose if we want to do it as a board, we could, and then it'd be just one letter and we could authorize
Probably
everyone to
be
sign on.
better.
Okay.
More punch, right?
I think it would have more punch if it's the select board does it. Now that puts Jamie in a spot. She may have to,
Just ask tomorrow.
Yeah.
No big deal.
if she doesn't have to recuse herself from it, never mind, it just comes out as select.
It'll be an issue.
I don't see it as an issue either. It's a grant.
Yeah, it's just in support of a grant.
Are the Orleans Select Board in support of it?
I think, yes.
So it has nothing to do with your day thing.
Yeah, I don't see where it's anything with the town.
There's no money
Although does the
involved.
town own, the town owns.
It's just me as a
Putnam Farm?
citizen.
No,
It's in the town of Orleans.
it's in the town, but it's not owned by.
It was purchased with, well, I guess it is owned by the. town.
Yeah, I
It's
thought it
conservation
said it was
property.
owned by the
Yeah.
town.
Yeah, it's conservation
So-
property.
Conservation.
But you're just recommending as an Eastham Select Board member, it has no bearing on anything in
Right.
particular.
Right.
They're just going for this grant to build.
So you want me to try and draft a letter from the select board? Or he's
No,
gonna have one?
he'll do one.
He'll do one? Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
It's, I think next week is the deadline, end of next week.
Okay,
And
have
so
him-
I'll get a hold of him, send it out, see what everybody thinks, and then,
Okay.
and Jamie will find out.
Great.
And if it's four of us, it's four of us, but,
Fine
so
with
do you want to make a motion then to support the grant?
Yeah,
Um,
let me get where is it in? It's in
I,
it's in the email.
yeah, I emailed it to everyone. Guess that.
So here it is. Putnam Farm, a grant application for construct, doesn't say what the grant is. Whoop. No, it is an MDAR FSIG grant.
So Massachusetts Department of Agriculture
Oh, yeah, MDR.
and Food Security Infrastructure
Infrastructure
Grant.
grants.
Yeah.
And I think they're going for $250,000.
We'll just. Okay, so we want to, I move that the select board authorizes a letter in support of Putnam Farms seeking a grant from the Massachusetts
Department of Agriculture.
Department of Agriculture and the Food Security Infrastructure Grant.
Second.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 5-0. Great.
And I'll let you know tomorrow, Amy. I'll ask.
Okay.
her, so she
And I'll get a
knows.
hold of Rick about getting a letter from the board.
Good. Yeah, I
Right.
just think the board is better.
Cool. I just, because it was late, I didn't want to necessarily ask the whole
You're-
board, but you're
thank
all
you.
over it, so thank you.
Got it. I appreciate the heads up.
Any other business or
Yeah,
correspondence?
I have one question to ask that maybe we can help. And I know that we're trying to help setting up with the RTE applications and so forth, that both Suzanne and I are sitting it out since we're up for re-election, and we don't want to have it look like the town is getting us in front of talking to citizens. But in looking at the RTE and talking a little bit with the assessor's office when I put mine in, is there a way that we can, even Jerry Searcell after May 20th, that we can not just help get the stuff together, but look at it and review it and train us so that we can say, yeah, this fits or this doesn't fit to help them? Is there any way that, because we are an employee of the town of Eastham. So I just asked the
I vote
question,
no.
yes or no, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I
Huh?
mean, I don't think we can log it into the computer and that sort of thing. I don't think that's our role.
I think it's just
But
to help talk to
I
people.
was-
yeah, that's what I've been doing at the library. I only had 3 people come not last week, but the week before. Last week, nobody came. But the 3 people that did come, they all had trusts and they all had specific questions. And so I just, and about their taxes, what to redact and that sort of thing. So I looked at everything to make sure they had addresses, to make sure they had, they were the beneficiaries of the trust. And then I said, okay, take all that to the clerk's office. Like, I'm not gonna
The
accept
assessor's
the assessor's
Yeah, no, no,
office.
no, yeah.
I'm not gonna accept your applications.
Okay,
The only way, without a trust, I probably would if they had all the information, but then I would just drop it off at the assessor's office.
I think
the
that's
next day.
a good rule of thumb.
I don't even think, yeah.
You don't initiate the transaction.
Right.
You just
Yeah.
facilitate.
You advise.
you advise on it, yeah. Okay, but that was my thought, was just try and potentially help Colleen and the staff, but
Yeah.
I have already helped quite, even though I voted against it, I've already helped quite a few people in trying to do it and help them with, instead of redacting, just put paper over, so you
Right.
just saw 1040 the year
Mhm.
and the name and address.
And that's
all
one
it's
thing
needed.
at the library that I did for someone was make copies.
Right.
They have a
Okay.
copy machine
Copy
there.
machine
So we
there.
put Post-it notes over their
Yeah,
financial
well,
information on their
everything-
tax form, and I went and
That
made a
worked.
copy of it
Oh,
for
that's
them,
great.
and they had
Just
it.
have a cover page even that doesn't have, like, or I guess, yeah, it does have the financials. that
Yeah,
one,
you have
but-
to
Well, the
have
front page
the,
of the
Yeah.
1040
the
has all
address,
the
yeah.
Yeah, it
stuff
does
on
have
it,
financials.
including social security numbers.
And driver's license too. I made copies of his driver's
Yeah.
license.
All right, that was the only question. I will help people that ask me, and then
And if
I'll
they need
help.
copies, send them to the library or
I'll help.
they'll do it
What
up
is
in
the
the
date that they don't need it for?
September 1st or
Well,
so.
I
what-
feel like we're gonna end up with like a rush of people in September.
You should see the stack of envelopes up there right now.
Right, they have a lot.
No, it's been steady.
Oh, great.
It's been pretty steady.
We got several hundred at
The
least.
dead,
Oh, good.
I haven't checked this.
the
one.
drop dead date is April 1st, 2026.
Right.
But the select board, whoever's on it, would want it to come before September 1.
I don't think you have to, I mean, I think people really are on it.
Yeah.
I have a question not related to this. So, Bob and Jerry wrote some really lovely responses to an email that we got, but you did reply. And I just wanted to make sure that when we get emails submitted through the website and it comes in the form, we need to take that person's email and copy and paste it, or can you do reply? And
No, you have to copy and
Okay,
paste.
so
copy and
Bob and Jerry, you two wrote some really great responses to someone.
But they went to no reply.
They went to
at
no
Civic.
reply and your
I did that
recipient
about,
did not-
I don't know,
You didn't
20
get 'em?
times before I,
No. Yeah.
You-
So who was I supposed to reply to?
You're
You have
supposed to
click on the
take,
name.
you have, like, it has the form and they fill out their email. You have to take that email.
Your copy.
You have to copy the email and then send
What is
it.
this,
Oh,
2025?
it's basically the way they.
I know, I know.
Thank you,
The way they
Sam.
What
explained,
year is this?
40 years.
the way they explained it to me is that it protects the security of our system,
Yeah, oh,
the
no,
integrity of our
touche.
system.
It's okay. It's just, I
think
spent
it's
all those
best.
hours writing these beautiful, no.
I mean,
Here, you wanna flip?
It. What? I mean, it is, I'm not, it's an.
oh, it didn't go
So
to
like,
him.
It didn't go to
Right.
him, it went to basically.
All of us.
No,
No,
if you
not
do
in the-
reply all, it
Not in the
just,
send. Yeah.
All right.
We all did it in the beginning. I did anyway.
I did it too.
like, where it
No, I
says-
get it.
Yeah.
yeah. it gives
So
the
Edward
email.
didn't get our stuff. huh?
So Edward, sorry.
Yeah, so you send it to no reply.
At Civics Plus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Poor Edward. I'll have to,
I talked to him on the phone. Ed Daniels, I talked to him for about 30 minutes on the phone.
I will
so.
send him and
You could forward what you
storage too.
said,
Yeah, you can
and
copy
then
what
you,
said.
it will like show that you actually in fact replied
just
on
even say,
April
I
8th.
wrote
Okay,
it.
I'll forward it.
Not
Thank you, Suzanne. I
2 weeks
appreciate it.
later.
Follow up on one, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, boy.
No worries. It's all right.
That's our job.
You think
Yeah.
no reply would have been your hint?
That's okay. No reply. Yeah, that's who I am. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other business?
No.
Jerry,
I move we adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Oh.
All right.
Thank you.